Hi guys, it's Joey, and today's video is going to be called Witchy Hermit or Lesson of the Hermit, and it's a direct reference to the tarot card, the Hermit, and how each of us needs to take on board this, what I think is a really important lesson. And I think it's something that has been flowing through my mind that is very relevant right now to the atmosphere of how things are in general, and it's been very relevant to my life as I have been going through the lesson of the Hermit myself, more so that the goddess plonked me into it rather than I went searching it for it, because I needed it, as is always the way, isn't it? So I thought I would discuss the lesson of the Hermit and how it's relevant in modern day life, show a couple of tarot cards that I have 2 decks that I use, so I'm going to show those and read from their little books each and then apply that to what we're talking about. If I keep looking down, it's because I've got some bullet points that I want to make sure that I get across, because this has been whirring around my head since yesterday. So where to begin? Okay. So in the modern technological world, it's easier than ever to communicate, socialise, get in touch with people. The internet and Facebook and social media sites, Twitter, YouTube, the whole shebang. It's never been as easy to be connected to people, to talk to people, to be a part of an online community, even sometimes to the detriment of real life community. It opens up a lot of doors, but it also causes a lot of problems. And I think that it becomes a problem because we never, or very rarely ever, sort of switch it all off. And I don't mean just switching off the computer or switching off whatever, the phone. I mean in here and in here, in your heart. The whole point of what I consider to be the lesson of the Hermit is to learn to be okay with ourselves, with our solitary company and our own mind. Quite often we're never solitary, and by that I don't mean like a solitary witch practice like I discussed the other day. I mean literally by ourselves, and it allows for us to meditate fully. It allows us to disconnect to that noise of the world and what's going on and what everybody's doing and what everybody's saying, etc. And that atmosphere can become like a kind of addiction, like a kind of poison. I mean, people have discussed Facebook addiction and addiction to the internet in different sort of ways before. I'm sure it's all over the place. And I am a frequent computer and internet user, and I get very huffy if people try to come out with numbers saying, you know, you're addicted if you spend this amount of time on, because I don't like the value judgment of that. What is usual for some people is different from other people. If you fully utilize the internet as a form of hobby as well as job, then you're going to spend a lot more time on it than if you don't. So this is not to judge any amount of time that you or I as a person spends interacting with the internet. It becomes a poison when it's starting to negatively influence your life in such a way that you are disconnecting from the ability to be solitary, from the ability to take time for yourself, from the ability to be able to go into a meditative state, just quietly examining things. And when you can't hear your own inner voice and the voice of deity, however you perceive it, through the noise of everything else, that is a sign that you need to embrace the lesson of the Hermit, as I'm going to call it. So I think I will stop discussing here, because otherwise I'm going to go full on out, and show the cards from my 2 decks and read the little interpretations and meanings within their little books. So the first tarot cards that I have is the Polina Tarot by Polina Cassidy. And I really like these, and the only real problem I had was the book that came with it was this little paper thing, and I mean, it just gets a mess, and there wasn't a lot of detail. The size of the pictures I actually prefer to my other deck, which I love the pictures even more. It's a shame that they weren't bigger, to be honest, but the size of these are gorgeous. Now, often when if you Google, for example, more internet fun, but if you Google the image of the Hermit, it's quite often an older gentleman with a long white beard and a stick, a staff, hooded, and it's very Father of Time-esque. There are tarot cards that break that imagery, that stereotypical imagery, and I think both of mine push. Yeah, mine push the imagery. The Polina Tarot is a sort of gothic fairy fantasy deck, I think is the fairest way of putting it. And the Hermit on here is a woman. Right, let's see how the webcam holds up, because I don't know how well it will hold up. There, so that's the woman. It's not a very good shot, but she's holding the beautiful staff as always and has a lantern. She has a bird on her head. It's an odd one. And I think they're meant to be cats or foxes by her feet. One's holding a clock. So there. That's absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to pop that back into its deck just in the middle there. Okay, and I will read to you what this booklet from Polina Cassidy says about the Hermit. The Hermit's meditative journey is supported by his contemplative companions. That is not a man. Who bring their own light. The lake symbolises self-reflection, and the stars in the sky are watchful, guiding lights. The Hermit's cloak is patterned with blue circles of tranquility, as the soul's journey is cyclical. Everything's a circle. A cycle, even. Not enough coffee. Not enough circle of coffee. That's what my brain is telling me. Okay, the bird on her head leads her to transcend new experiences. So that's what the bird in the head was about. Okay, so it's a time for self-reflection, soul-searching, solitude, deep understanding, retreat, gaining perspective toward the outside world. In its positive aspect. I shan't read its negative aspect, because if you are hiding from the world and isolating yourself in a negative way, that's not the lesson of the Hermit. So, right, the second deck is my baby, which is The Shadowscape's Companion by Stephanie Pumanlaw and Barbara Moore, and the artwork is Stephanie Pumanlaw. She is probably my favourite artist of the moment. I find her imagery gorgeous. I saw the images online and was nose to monitor, like, I have to have these are amazing. The only problem with these tarot cards is the image is small and something is kind of lost. So this one does look like a guy. Again, he has his lantern, but no staff on this. Up against the moon, the blue circles, there are shells and birds below, and he's standing on a rock formation with a circle in it. So the imagery, oh gosh, the webcam does not like it, does it? It's a little bit better. I'm probably a funny colour now, but no, it's not too bad. Okay, so that is the card, and let's put you back in and wrap you back up. Your rose quartz on top. Right, and then the Shadowscape Companion book is a proper full-on book, and it gives a lot more, I don't know, detail. I mean, there's this, which is to do with the imagery and the meaning, and then this is the interpretation of the card itself. So, he is the seeker who has turned his back to the noise of light and distractions of the world. And webcam's going funny colours. In the city, the fragile light of the stars is drowned by the glare and haze of life. He takes his lantern. He was told by a wise woman that it was a bit of captured star and knows its way home. The lonely beam of light pulls him clear of the valleys and high above a glittering lake whose surface is liquid mirror. His lantern marks the path, and he does not know where he goes, but each step lights the next, and the next, and the next. He climbs to a distant pinnacle that is clear of the smog and humanity. As he retreats, the air attains a spicy fragrance. It is a purity he does not know he has missed until he breathes it for the first time, and then it is as if the body aches for it and cannot live without that breath of life. Others have been here before him, but the steps are pristine and there is no indication of their passage. It is the nature of the place that to each who comes they are first and only, and no other will tread there until the present visitor is forgotten. It is a long journey, and during the course of the trek his eyes finally become accustomed to the darkness of the wild. He leaves behind the memory of the city. His star in the lantern burns hot and bright, and her sisters in the heavens swirl in a joyous dance. Meaning: being introspective, seeking solitude, withdrawing from the world, and giving or receiving guidance. The Hermit is an inspirational friend and teacher who can help illuminate the secret of one's own mind. That which was mysterious can be made clear with the proper light shining on the situation. The loons glide on... the loons must be the birds. The loons glide on silent wings across the horizon, elusive shadows into the night. They are symbols of peace and tranquility, and their eerily haunting call that echoes across waterways is laden with ancient wisdom. Loons are also respected for their knowledge of the sea, sky, and forest worlds, and have often been in the headdresses of Indian chiefs. Presumably the feathers, not whole birds. Okay. Please come back to me, web camera. Thank you. You really are determined though, aren't you? So apologies if the web camera is going to argue with me. There we go, that's a little bit better. So those are two book points of reference which I thought might help with this idea. And as I mentioned before, I think this is particularly relevant to the community right now and to myself. And I will talk about my self first, because one second. Sorry, gnomes. They're everywhere. So I'll talk about myself first and the lesson of the Hermit that I've learnt first, because that's my personal experience with it. This webcam is driving me nutty. Thank you. Just gnomes. Try and make videos, gnomes. Go away. It's always when you're doing something that men want something. Have you noticed? Lesson of the Hermit. Shh. Okay, so I had a lot of stress happen in my life, a lot of personal stuff, which I don't need to talk about on YouTube. You know, that's my personal life. I went through it. It was a very, very stressful time, and I had literally 10 years of pure and utter hell, and it was just one thing after another thing after another thing after another, and it was turbulent, and it was stressful, and it was bang, 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 bang for years. At the end of that point, you can imagine I was quite worn out and quite disillusioned with other people. And the goddess guided me to a place where I would embrace the lesson of the Hermit whether I wanted to or not. because as a person I quite often prefer to be active, and that isn't something which is healthy all the time, because you're not actually dealing with matters properly. You're not digesting what has happened to you, you're not coping properly, you're putting things off rather than dealing with it. And the lesson of the Hermit is a really difficult one to actually embrace. Now, a lot of the time when we say solitude, people think of it as being an overly negative thing, like Billy no mates, loner, and like it's a really negative thing. And I think society sort of perpetuates this idea because, I mean, if you want to take it from a negative standpoint, like why would society not want people to take a little bit of solitude, is because there's less money in it for them. You know, if you're being social, you go out, you pay for things, you buy drinks, you go to a restaurant, you do stuff, you use the phone, you use the internet, it's stuff. And it also is a level of self-awareness and spirituality is attained through solitary behaviours such as meditation, which doesn't have to be by yourself, but I think it's more profound most of the time when it's just you. So society doesn't encourage us to embrace the lesson of the Hermit, especially not now. Ancient cultures used to quite often sort of encourage that sort of behaviour. I mean, walkabout is one example. It was like a spiritual journey, and quite often was solitary, or a solitary confinement period where you would go into and learn the mysteries. And that's what I think we often forget to do. And modern life can be so hectic that it can be hard to do. And I will discuss how you could do it in all different scenarios in a minute, because I understand that some people are watching this video and probably go, I've got kids. I can fully understand that. My sister has a young boy, so I will discuss that in a minute. But first and foremost, what is the lesson of the Hermit? It is not to fear being alone. It is to understand that you must balance within yourself and within the universe, and come to yourself together to find a place of peace, a place of balance, a place of learning, a place of spiritual guidance, a place of being whole. You could, if you so wished, read in this solitary confinement type space. You could read and encourage your own learning, but you don't have to. You can learn spiritual lessons through the art of meditation, the art of being silent, and the art of learning to open up your heart and soul and spirituality to what the universe is saying. It's putting aside ego. It's putting aside the considerations of your own selfish wants and the needs of others, even if it's just for half an hour a day. And I had real problems with this because I hate... No, that's not right, because I don't hate. I had a tantrum yesterday about the word hate. I don't like the word hate. I don't think people fully understand what hate is, and I think too often we just apply it to stuff and it's not merited. I think people don't fully understand what hate is, and it's unwise to use it like that. So I will correct myself. I have a problem with being selfish because I see selfishness everywhere in society, everywhere around me. There's an awful lot of selfishness, and it has always bothered me from being a young person to being a teenager to now, moving on through the years. And like, it always bothered me. The selfish aspect of things, when I saw people who were just innately selfish and only cared about themselves, it used to rile me up, and it still does, and you can tell. And it's just like, if the people's only goals are, it bothers me. So that was the first lesson of the Hermit, which I had to balance myself and realize that it is not selfish to take care of yourself. It's a hard lesson to learn, particularly for a lot of pagans who are very giving and don't know how to say, I need to stop, I need to take some time for me. It can be a really difficult thing. So you have to sort of balance within yourself the idea that you are not being selfish to the detriment of someone else. You are going into a place of solitary, at the place of the hermit. It's imagining as if you had in fact gone, like a hermit would do, into a cave, even if it's just your own bedroom, even if it's not actually a confined space, even if you go for a walk or something, and it's just to learn to block out everything that's noise and pollution and all of that, and to quietly focus on yourself, your own health and your own spiritual health, and to give and receive messages to the universe. And I say give and receive because it's a matter of balance. Quite often when I talk to the goddess, I literally talk to the goddess. Whether I talk out loud or I talk in my head is irrelevant. I sit in my quiet time and I'll talk to her. And she's listening because I can feel her presence and I can feel my eyes whelming up, which is what always happens when I talk, when the goddess is directly there and I start crying. So if I start crying, that's why. And I talk to her. And I think, you know, a lot of people would be like, isn't that disrespectful? It's like, she's your mother. She's a part of you and a part of everyone. And she's loving. It's not disrespectful just to talk, even if you're just like, this really bothers me and I wish it didn't, or this is really getting to me. And what you're actually doing in that solitary space is you're leaching out any poison. Which you might, if you otherwise didn't, would build and build and build until you exploded and would cause harm to yourself and others. So this sort of extraction process within the realm of the hermit is to take out the things you don't need, and you could, you know, if you wanted to physically get rid of them, write them down and burn them, right? So leaching all that poison out and being done with it. And then in response, you listen and look for signs from the goddess, whether you feel her presence like I am right now, whether you hear it in your intuition, like it's like in your mind's eye, it's feelings, emotions, even words and images might come through. And dreaming is why dreams are so important, because you're actually in a forced state of meditation or embracing your subconscious, and that's like embracing your connection with divinity, because you have no choice. So doing it actively is a much more powerful thing because you've sorted it out. So if you have gone into a little space, that can be easier to do, and then if you've gone out for like a walk in nature or whatever, you can look for signs as you're walking through. And how I would visualize it is like birds calling out. I was thinking about something to do with the goddess yesterday, and I looked up and there was a giant crow. It's like the biggest crow I've seen in ages. I was like, bah! And I was like, okay then, that's the answer. And it can be anything. It could be just the movement of the trees as you're thinking on an issue that's sort of a confirmation that you're being listened to. It could just be a feeling. It could just be the way the light falls and patterns. You're looking for images and symbols and things. And if you learn to go into yourself and learn to connect with yourself, you will start to understand all those little things if you listen to your intuition. For, you know, a lot of us sort of think, oh, that could mean that, and then we dismiss ourselves as being silly. Well, you shouldn't, because that's your intuition speaking. And the lesson of the hermit can help you with trusting your inner instincts and your inner intuitions and your inner self, and throwing your pen on the desk while you're faffing about with something. I've always got to have something in my hands, so I've got to talk with my hands and I just move about. Okay. Okay. So firstly, I think we'll talk about what happens when you don't do this, and then how to accomplish it. So when you forget or reject or don't embrace the lesson of the hermit, which quite often can be dumped upon you, by the universe. The universe is like, do it. It can lead to all sorts of stress. Like, you're not going to be able to cope with 8 million things on top of your shoulders because you'll get crushed. And if you don't know how to embrace yourself as a person, you don't know how to live with yourself, you don't know how to be okay in your own mind, like you have to be surrounded by others all the time, it's a detriment to your own self. You don't know how to listen to yourself, you'll be more easily swayed by what everybody else thinks rather than knowing what your own opinions are. You're going to miss out on lessons, you're going to miss out on connecting to your own inner spirit. You're going to disconnect a little bit from the god and the goddess or deity or however you see it, and then you start interpreting your own egotistical selfish wants as the want of deity, and that's a dangerous thing to do because you are disrespecting them in their almighty power. As I've said before, I have never had a message from the goddess to do something which is really bad and selfish, and you're disrespecting yourself because you're not allowing yourself to balance out. You may find that your anger, I was going to say emotions, but apparently the universe wants me to say anger. Apparently your anger levels will rise and rise and rise, and you're just going to be angry. You don't know why sometimes. You might find yourself sinking into a depressed state and you can't fully comprehend why. Basically, a lot of negative emotions are going to be the result of all the emotional and spiritual clutter and pollution which accumulate from not taking time to yourself, to balance, to relax, to embrace divinity in that respect, to embrace the lesson of the Hermit, which is that you need time to yourself. So if you find yourself in these situations and you're constantly feeling really, really depressed or really, really angry, this is not to say these are the only causes of these, by the way. If you suffer from depression, you're going to suffer from depression. If you suffer from anger problems, you're going to suffer from anger problems, and you will need outside help with those and other methods of helping other than the Hermit lesson. It's always good to explore every eventuality with negative emotions to help, counselling, therapy, some form of exercise and hobby to get you out of the house and help with those exercises, good for helping with negative emotions and things. Improve your diet and how you're eating. I know I suffer from depression, so make sure that you embrace every aspect of help and seek out every aspect which will help you in that regard. However, it can be a symptom of negative emotions when you're feeling put on all the time, you're feeling got at all the time, you're feeling like everybody else's needs come before your own and you never have any time to yourself, and you feel resentful of other people putting on you all the time, and then you feel bad for feeling resentful, like you're a selfish person. That's what happens to me. Everybody dumps their stuff on me quite frequently. My family, who I no longer have anything to do with, used to do this. They used to dump all their problems on me, and I would claw my way through it to help them, and at the end of it they didn't give a damn that I'd helped them. They wouldn't, half the time they wouldn't listen to me or take my advice, and then they would be nasty with me for trying to rule their life, is what my mother used to call it. Like, it's like, you asked for my help, and then so that's one of the things that used to get to me. Not anymore, I don't allow it to. And that's something that can really throw you in every area of your life. In here, in your whole body, in your aura, in your energy, in how you feel. Your emotions are all, your mind might be all afraid and stressed, and you might get, I don't know how other people experience it, but I experience it as a clench in your head where there's too much to deal with, and it's like, and you just fall to bits. So that can happen when you don't embrace the need for solitary behaviour. And I fully understand that different people in different walks of life are going to have different access to the idea, but everybody can find some time to themselves. Even if it's 5-10 minutes a day, even if you get up earlier, 5-10 minutes a day just to meditate before you get up, or even if you go to bed 5-10 minutes later to meditate before you go to bed, which might be a really nice thing if you're stressed and you're having trouble going to sleep. Some other ways in which you can do this, Set yourself a routine to do it like I just suggested, before or after bed. Or if you have a bath quite regularly, you can make a thing of it. You could turn it into a ritual of itself. This is the lesson of what I think in my mind's eye as being the lesson of the Japanese green tea ritual, which is to turn something which is an everyday experience into a ritual to help you connect with deity and yourself. So in the circumstance of a bath, you might say, you know, even if you have a family and you have kids and a husband or wife or whomever, you might say, you know, every day at this time, maybe when the kids have gone to bed, I'm going to go for a bath for half an hour. And that's my time. And you know, if you need to go to the loo, go now. That's what I do to my gnome. I'm going in the shower, go in the loo. I'm going to, you know, leave me alone for that time. And you can get a load of little tea lights. Be very, very careful where you're putting them. And you could put some crystals in the bath. A rose quartz one would be a nice one. Sam is Spirit, or Sammy is Spirit. She has a beautiful video where she shows herself doing that, and that's great because that's something I've been looking into recently. And she's like a crystal expert, you know, crystallist. I can't remember what she called herself, but that. And then you can have nice bath oils, or you can have a nice self-made mix with Epsom salts and some herbs, something purifying, etc. You can have some music on, you could have some incense on, maybe a stick just to be safe. With all of this, making sure everything is somewhere where it's safe and isn't going to cause problems, obviously. And have you music on, or have a book or something. I would say music rather than a book. I can get into a meditative state when reading, but a lot of people couldn't. And that's just because of how my crazy mind and books work. So music would be easier. And October, you are interrupting my video, so I'm letting the whole world know you're doing it. There, she knows she's done it now. She'll tell me off later. Right, so even if it's a bath like that, or you could go for a little walk in the morning or in the evening, or just at some point through the day, and you connect with the nature around you. If you have a nature spot you can go in, if you have a garden spot where you can go in, you know, depending on the weather, obviously. Connecting with nature can be a beautiful way to embrace that solitary thing, because you can enjoy it on a level that only you can understand. And how I often think of this is how I relate to classical music, and how I relate to nature is the same thing. I am filled with an overwhelming sense of emotion which gets to me. I can sometimes bawl my eyes out, I can sometimes just feel it deep inside me, and it's just And I can't fully ever explain that to people, and some people look at me like I'm nuts when I try to. I'm like, doesn't it move you? And that's the simplest way I can put it, that it moves me. And so you just go out and you just embrace all of that. So you can also, of course, just meditate in your own room. You don't need candles and incense if you don't want. If you can use these things, go for it. If you can't use these things, don't. You could even just have a little bit of an oil on a hanky and have that like on your body, or like a little perfume that you enjoy, or something like that. If the smells help, the sense of smell can often help us relax. There are often certain scents which are personal to each and every person which help us relax. Lavender is obviously a obvious one. But, you know, different people have different scents and things that can help. If it helps you to embrace every element of your senses to help you go into a meditative state, into a solitary place, into a way where you change your energy levels up so you are connecting with deity and spirit, embrace each and every one of them. And only you know how you best adjust things for your senses to help you go into that state. So sight-wise, some people will be better off in a darkened room lit with candles. Some people will be better off in a well-lit room maybe with pictures around them. It's just two off the cuff ideas. How best to interact with that is you. The best sensor for you, you know, what you've sat on is for you. Some people are better off on the hard ground. Some people would prefer to be in a comfy chair just because it helps them get into that state. So, you know, embrace what is right for you, and you will probably need to experiment a little bit with that if you haven't in the past. Just try what you think would be right and just listen to yourself. That's the first step. Listen to yourself. And that is the whole point of half of the lesson, at least, of the lesson of the Hermit. So the whole point in this is to go and further your own spiritual self, to let go of ego, to let go of anger, to let go of negative emotions, to let go of all the noise pollution that surrounds us on a day-to-day basis, to de-stress, to detangle, to come away and just learn to be ourself and be okay with who we are, and learn to be a better version of who we are through our communications with spirit and deity, however you want to say it. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope that was, I don't want to say enlightening, that sounds a little bit full of it, doesn't it? This is just something which has been going through my head over and over and over again over the last few days, that this is really necessary for me right now and community right now. So I thought I would put this video out about this. So many blessings.